The film Heretic tells the story of two young women who are Mormons, so they go door to door to help spread the word of God and the word of Joseph Smith and all that stuff. But then one day they ultimately find a person who is very interested in this conversation, and as the conversation goes on, they enter his house and things start to get weird. That is the story, and you go from there. The man is played by Hugh Grant, and I would say is, to me, the highlight of this film. I think there was every actor, Sophie Thrasher and Chloe East, were both very good as well, but Grant was the standout to me. I thought he perfectly played the sort of creepy guy who is also nice and also is saying these pleasant things, but something is off, and part of it is just you've seen the poster, you're walking into a horror movie, so you kind of can put piece two and two together, but it was something where I even thought I guess that might be spoilery, so I won't get there yet. I'll do some spoiler thoughts at the end of this video. I will give my rating then and tell you if this is a movie that you should watch sort of towards the end of the video, but just to talk about this briefly. I think the first thing you should know going in is that if you see, spooky horror movie, this is not exactly that. It does do that. This is the film that does, accomplish those things, but very much a large chunk of this movie is religious discussions going on. It's kind of like, I think I put in my Letterboxd review, which, by the way, follow me on Letterboxd. Jackson Kruger is the name. I think I put in that review, though, that the Hugh Grant character very much feels like the kind of guy who would get told to stop talking politics at Thanksgiving like 18 times. He just feels like he's enjoying this conversation, and it almost has the vibe of getting, caught at the party with the guy you absolutely do not want to have a conversation with. Listen, some people are really into that religious discussion. I find it fascinating enough, so I was still enjoying this. I don't want to make it seem like I didn't enjoy that part of the movie. I did. I do think your mileage is going to vary on that, though. If you are someone who is religious and maybe just doesn't really want to deal with a discussion like that, you have to make sure you're in at least the right mindset. Some people just don't find that topic very interesting and aren't going to be interested in it. Some people are very fascinated by that and therefore are going to probably really enjoy this movie, because that is essentially the movie, and it is a very ambitious topic. The writers and directors of this movie, Scott Beck and Brian Woods, are probably best known for A Quiet Place. Now, they didn't fully create that, but from my understanding, they created the original screenplay of that movie, which then John Krasinski and his writing partner took over, and they sort of turned it into what it ended up being. But they still had the original concept and the original idea behind it, so they definitely still deserve credit for it. And I think that the writing here is, while I said Hugh Grant is the strong point, that's probably number two. This is not a boring movie. As I said, a large part of it is political discussion, but this is entertaining throughout. And I think that if it was in lesser hands, this could have been a bit of a slog to get through. I will be honest, there were parts where I was kind of like, can we get to the horror stuff? Maybe that was just me not having the right expectations going in. But once I sort of realized, okay, no, this is the movie, this is what we're doing, I was enjoying it. Part of it, too, was just like, okay, you see two young girls walking through the house of a creepy guy, something's going to go wrong, right? You don't know what, you don't know when it's going to happen, but you're kind of just ahead of the audience, or ahead of the characters. The audience is ahead of the characters at that part. That's just, kind of the nature of it. I also thought this is a very cool-looking movie. It mostly takes place in a couple of rooms, a couple of locations, but never felt visually boring to me. It was always interesting. So I think that was another strong suit of this film. Although I will say, my minor critique of the direction is, this is a movie I watched last week, so my memory's not full, a little bit fuzzy. My memory's a little bit fuzzy on some of the stuff, but there were a few things where, like, the camera seemingly shifted without anything happening. It kind of just went like this, and there wasn't usually they say in the way you do this is you want to have something to track it. So for example, you have the pen here, and then let's see if I can do this right. You have a track like that. That looks better than just moving it visually. It just it does something weird to your brain. That was something I'm not saying it's a problem because that's something you're not supposed. They don't teach you in film school. I'm saying it was just visually it kind of made me a little dizzy a couple times, which maybe was the intention, but I didn't love it. So again, this total nitpick, but that was something I noticed. So I'm bringing up things I noticed in this review. That's what I do here. I would also say that one thing I liked is that this movie could have very easily been like Reddit atheist owns Mormons or whatever. I didn't think it did that. I thought it did treat the the religious people with respect, which for me personally, I am not a religious person, but at the same time, I want to see characters treated with respect, and I want to see them feel like real people, and I thought this film did that very well. The two young women in this film, they both grew up practicing Mormonism, although neither currently practice from what I understand, but still I think that was interesting, and so I definitely liked a lot of this film. There are some critiques I have to get into in terms of like the plot and the story, which I just can't really get into without getting into spoilers. I will say I think that this does feel a bit tonally inconsistent and not everything fully added up to me towards the end of it, but I would also say that while a lot of these horror movies that have come out, I feel like are almost like willing to sacrifice plot and character to make the story more interesting, or not even really a story more interesting, because that is plot and character, but more so to make the like events more interesting, or to make like a bigger scare, and we'll sacrifice some like logic for like a bigger scare. This movie never really did that for me, so I really appreciated that. So yeah, should you watch Heretic? I think so. I personally would not categorize this as a you gotta go out and see it right now, rush out, it's amazing kind of film. No, I mean, it's a solid time at the movie theater. I was thoroughly entertained throughout the entirety of the runtime, which, hour 50 is a little bit longer than your average horror movie, but I think it never, again, a few scenes felt a little bit slow for me. I was ready for it to move on at a certain point, but for the most part, I thought was again, a really entertaining hour and 50 minutes. So again, if you're someone who isn't really into that religious conversation stuff, this might be one to sit out. If you are really into it, then check it out. If you're kind of like me, kind of into it, but it's not something you spend most of your time, reading about or, listening to podcasts about, I would still say it's worth a watch, but that might be one to, if you have time, go out and see it. If not, you can wait until it's on streaming. So my overall rating, I was really in between a 6 or a 7. I decided to go with like a high 6 out of 10. I think it's very good. I enjoy it. Good time with the movies, but nothing groundbreaking in my opinion. But now let's get into spoilers and talk about, some of the issues that I said I had. So, we'll get into spoilers here. 3, 2, 1, you have been warned. If you have not seen this movie, you will be spoiled. So, okay, yeah. I mean, as I said, I felt it was a bit tonally inconsistent. Like, just not tonally inconsistent is probably the wrong word, but it just kind of felt like two different movies. There was the initial, 50 minutes of, the lengthy scene in the, downstairs when they're like, do you go into the basement? What do you do? Very extended. It then definitely becomes something else when they get into kind of the dungeon area, and then there is like, is this a mythical thing that happened? Is this a miracle, or is it something else? And I gotta say, very convoluted plan that this Hugh Grant character came up with. Very much, he's planning this one out, very sophisticatedly. I don't know if that's a word. Just a couple things that I almost felt like, I don't know if everything fully fit in a bow in a way that was satisfying to me. Like, there was a point to this, that there was something that it was saying. It just, I don't know if it was like plot wise fully satisfying to me. The Sophie Thatcher character is, I hope I'm not butchering her name, her kind of just figuring out what happened towards the end, where there's a moment where she says, wait a second, I know that the woman was actually laying slightly off, and because of that, I know that this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and like, she's like 3 steps ahead. When for the most part in this movie, you spent the film being ahead of her, right? Because you knew that there was something weird going on with Hugh Grant. It just felt a bit a bit jarring, I would say. Also, some like silly things of like her way of exiting the house was she like looked on the model house and then was able to from that navigate where there was like an exit on it, was a little bit odd. Well, maybe just break a window or something. I don't know. Maybe they said something and I missed it and you couldn't do that. But either way, I don't know. It was a very interesting film. These little minor critiques I have, I wouldn't say like ruined it, but maybe what kind of stopped it from being like something that I loved, and instead was just something that I enjoyed. But again, for some people, I'm sure it flowed a lot nicer, and I can see why, there are people who really enjoy this movie. I totally get it. I still enjoyed it. I thought it was good. Just wasn't my favorite of the year or anything like that. But will probably make my, I do a top, like, last year it was like top 25 list, just all the movies that are good that I want to talk about at the end of the year. It'll make that list. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Heretic. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.